Okay, so chapter 5, sorry, and 6 of Hard Times. Chapter 5 is a description of Coketown, and Dickens really makes that point that the hands in Coketown are very similar to the Gradgrinds. Neither of them has had any sort of chance to allow their imagination to flourish. And then 6 is the exact opposite. We meet the Circus Folk that Sissy's been taken in by, and Gradgrind decides to look after Sissy. Okay, so we're told about 3 lines down on page 26. Let us strike the keynote, Coketown, before pursuing our tune. So the narrator there is very much like a composer saying, I want to play this keynote, so this note in a piece of music. You know, the keynote is a note that you keep going back to. So the narrator again compares himself to an entertainer and a player of music, again making that point that the narrator is very much on the side of fancy and of imagination. And the idea that basically Coketown is a metaphor for everything else in this book. We're told a couple of lines after that, as matters stood, it was a town of unnatural red and black like the painted face of a savage. So again, that very cruel, harsh image, very, very different to childhood. That's also very like how Tom's face is painted at the end when they hide him in the circus and disguise him as a clown. So a bit of foreshadowing there that this upbringing in Coketown is what makes Tom sort of be taken to that demeaned position at the end. We're told about halfway down that all the people went in and out at the same hours with the same sound upon the same pavements to do the same work. That repetition of the word same really emphasising the monotony of life in Coketown for all these workers. They're just hands, they're not people. The church there, right about 5 lines before the end, is described as a pious warehouse of red brick. So even the religious building is described as being like a warehouse. So even religion is just part of this same system. Dickens is showing basically there's no room for childhood. There's no room for genuine religion. This is simply, just something that is again just an extension of this utilitarian system. And on page 27, he criticises the religion there, that basically it's hypocritical. He asks us on page 28, just after halfway down, is it possible, I wonder, that there was any analogy between the case of the Coulter population and the case of the little Gradgrinds, making that point really clearly that the Gradgrind family are a microcosm. Everything that goes wrong in their childhood is a tiny version of what's happening that's going wrong in Coketown, and then therefore in the Victorian world as a whole, due to the dangers of utilitarianism. Gradgrind bumps into Sissy basically in the street, and she's asked what she's carrying. She's carrying a bottle. About a third of the way down the page, Bounderby says it's gin, so again judging her based on her class and based on her appearance. And she says, dear no sir, it's a 9 oils. So Sissy is associated with these 9 oils. These basically are an ointment, something that people put on as a healing, a balm to sort of heal them. So the symbol associated with Sissy is one of healing, which makes that point really clearly that Sissy, due to her childhood, due to her imagination, is able to heal everybody else. Opposite of Bryony, whose imagination is ultimately something that destroys a lot of things. We're told towards the bottom of page 30, about 7 or 8 lines from the bottom, Mr. Gradgrind, though hard enough, was by no means so rough a man as Mr. Bounderby. His character was not unkind, all things considered. He might have been a very kind one indeed, if he had only made some round mistake in the arithmetic that balanced it years ago. And that's a key point. Gradgrind is not a bad person. Dickens is making the point that he's just adapted this system and followed it for the best reasons, but gone completely wrong of it. And yet at the end, Bounderby, who is a much more dangerous character, at the bottom of page 31, end of the chapter, he's laughing at Sissy. He says, merry legs and 9 oars, eh, said Mr. Bounderby, entering last with his metallic laugh. Pretty well this for a self-made man. So again, he's self-absorbed, self-obsessed, comparing himself to other people. He's a self-made man. His laugh is metallic, so again associated with the machinery, not with humanity. But the things he's laughing at with Sissy, merry legs and 9 oars. Merry legs is the dog that's been loyal and that only returns to the company after his master's died. 9 oils is his healing property. So the things that he's mocking are what Dickens actually values as symbols of humanity. Now they go into the circus, and we get basically now Dickens juxtaposing Coketown with everything in the circus that to him is a much more positive image. We're told about a third of the way down page 33 that Sissy has got her long, dark, childish hair streaming behind her. We had a list of adjectives associated with Mrs. Gradgrind to show a weakness. Here, Sissy, it's long, dark, childish. The power, the life, the vitality. And ending in childish, Dickens values childhood. That's a really important, important item for him. Bounderby's laughing basically at the people there and joking at the very top of page 35. He says, queer sort of company too for a man who has raised himself, meaning, you know, he's a self-made man. And he's told, lower yourself then, retorted Cupid. Oh Lord, if you've raised yourself so high as all that comes to, let yourself down a bit. So the guy's being a bit cheeky to him, really, saying, well, lower yourself down, stop being so raised up, come down to our level. But again, I think that's foreshadowing the way that Bounderby's like this inflated balloon, and he is going to be let down, you know, by the end of the book. We told halfway down page 36, Bounderby says, there's no family pride about me, there's no imaginative sentimental humbug about me. I call a spade, and I call the mother of Josiah Bounderby of Coketown, without any fear of favour, what I should call her if she had been the mother of Dick Jones of Wapping. Okay, in other words, she says that, you know, he's saying that he's got no time for his mother, that she's, you know, she's left him to function for himself. He calls a spade. Again, Dickens as an author doesn't have very much appreciation for this. Dickens values, you know, wordplay and imagination, as he does throughout this novel. Somebody who calls a spade clearly is an enemy of creativity. Compared Bounderby's very, very dim view of his mother with the very bottom of page 36, when we're told that Sissy's dad has basically abandoned her. And we're told that Duke sent his daughter out on an errand not an hour ago, and then was seen to slip out himself with his hat over his eyes and a bundle tied up in a handkerchief under his arm. She will never believe it of him, but he has cut away and left her. Okay, and that point, she will never believe it of him. Bounderby criticising his mother when actually it turns out that his mother didn't really cause him any problems, it's all a lie. Sissy, who actually has been cut loose by her father, but who refuses to believe it. Her childish trust in her dad, which to Dickens is much more positive. About 3/4 of the way down page 38, Dickens describes the circus, and we're told all the mothers could and did dance upon the slack wire and the tightrope and perform rapid acts on bareback steeds. None of them were at all particular in respect of showing their legs, and one of them, alone in a Greek chariot, drove 6 in hand into every town they came to. Compare those empowered, powerful women there with Mrs. Gradgrind, this little tiny bundle of shawls. Again, to Dickens, the circus is a place of equality and of a much better sort of time, I suppose, and better relationship between men and women. But we're told at the very bottom of page 38, yet there was a remarkable gentleness and childishness about these people. So that power of women is associated again with childishness, with youth, okay, with childhood. We meet Mr. Sleary on page 39. A very, very famous character in Dickens because of this lisp that Dickens writes down all the time. It is annoying when you read it, but I think that's sort of Dickens' point. The point he's making is that it's an effort for Sleary to speak. He can't speak well. Compare that to Bounderby and all the meaningless bluster. For Sleary, every word is sort of important. He calls Gradgrind and Bounderby Squire, which is a less respectful version of Sir. So again, Sleary is showing that actually he doesn't maybe have a lot of time for these people. And we're told halfway down page 40, they cared so little for plain facts, these people, and were in that advanced state of degeneracy on the subject that instead of being impressed by the speaker's strong common sense, they took it in extraordinary dudgeon. Okay, so again, Bounderby has basically said, you know, Sissy, your dad's left you, it speaks the plain facts. The circus folk, you know, we get these people, the narrator pretending to kind of judge them, but actually it's because they're backing Sissy up. You know, Dickens is totally on their side, they're much more feeling. Gradgrind basically says he'll keep Sissy at the top of page 41, but he says it is understood that you communicate no more with any of your friends who are here present. Okay, in other words, I don't want anything else to do with you. Ironic, because it's Sleary who ends up trying to help Tom get away at the end of the novel. Okay, so again, Dickens is foreshadowing the way that ultimately the Gradgrinds have to rely on these circus folk. And then we're told, where is it, on page 41, we're told about Sleary's sort of funny eyes. He's got one sort of eye that looks straight and one eye that sort of wanders. We're told about a third of the way down page 43. With that, he regarded her attentively with his fixed eye, surveyed his company with his loose one. So he's got 2 eyes, and that's a great symbol for Dickens. Sleary is this good character because he's able to see the world in 2 different ways because of these 2 eyes. Compare it to Gradgrind and Bounderby, who only see fact, only look at their own way. And then we got towards the bottom of page 43, about 5 lines from the bottom, he says people must be amused by somehow. In other words, people must be amused, okay, somehow. And that's Dickens' key point, isn't it? As an entertainer, as an author, people must be amused. Okay, fact will only get you so far. Imagination, entertainment is more important. Says at the top of 44, make the best of us, not the worst of us. I think Dickens is doing the same thing. Yes, they don't fit neatly into the class system, but Dickens is saying it's great that they don't. It's great that they do have these two eyes that they can see the world with differently. And then, you know, right at the end, they go into the blackness of the street, and we get the feeling, basically, that Dickens is suggesting that this circus, you know, this way of life, although unconventional, is far better than what we've just had in chapter 5, when he describes Coat Town and the Gradgrinds.